I am delighted to tell you that earlier today, this being recording day, not release day, but earlier today, I walked up the 2 flights of stairs that lead to my chiropractor's office. And that may not seem like a big deal to you, but if you were around almost exactly 3 years ago when I first visited my chiropractor, it would seem to you to be a miracle that I walked up the 2 flights of stairs to her office today. And I'm talking about it because I am reflecting upon that time. And reflecting upon that time leads me to think about just the simple pleasures of life. The simple, good, damn things in life that are the counterbalance, that are the antidote to being lost in the thoughts about the not so good things that happen in life. And we all have those thoughts to think about, especially this time, this day and age. And so what follows is going to be a very loose and thoroughly unprepared discussion of just some of the good things as an antidote to some of the bad things. And I shall attempt to wax semi-eloquent about it after we do the thing. You want to hear more about this, go back to episode 134 of the old John Huff podcast, titled Fontaine's Back Pains and a Cat Fight, March 15th, 2023. I was at that time in the midst of an awful experience of back spasms that was probably the longest consistent experience of back spasms that I ever had. Now, if you've been listening for any length of time, you know that I am plagued by back spasms. I have been since the early 2000s. We're talking probably 25 years now, when a freak accident happened at the gym. I was squatting, thank God, with a Smith machine. And at the bottom of not even a heavy squat, just a light squat, my back, which I will admit was tired, just gave out. And I had to have somebody come and rescue me. And probably the bravest thing I ever did in my life was stand up. I sat there on the floor for I don't know how long, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, in shock, and not knowing if I had just herniated a disc or slipped a disc or popped something, not knowing if I had done really serious, possibly surgery requiring damage to my spine. Really friggin' scary. And I didn't know at the time that I shouldn't be able to stand up. I didn't know that. In that moment, in shock, I tried several times to get up and couldn't. And then with one heroic effort, managed to get to my feet. Okay. And limp quite literally to my car. And then not be able to get into my car, and then find my way somehow into it and drive home in shock, and then not really be able to get out of my car, and I had to flag down my spouse or significant other to come down from our second floor apartment and help me get out of the car, crawl into the house. I'm having chills thinking about this, by the way. Some trauma, not just physical, was accumulated that day. And I crawled up the stairs to our apartment and laid on the floor and freaked the F out because I didn't know. I didn't know what I had done. Something bad, it seemed, because I couldn't stand up. And the fact that I managed to stand up at the gym, even now when I think about it, is astounding because I shouldn't have been able to get up, but I just didn't know any better at the time. And I spent the better part of the next week on hands and knees. I learned that I could get myself into kind of a kneeling position and drape my upper body across a office chair on wheels and kind of roll myself around the apartment. I didn't know what I'd done. Now, what had happened is that there was a weakness in my sacroiliac on the left side. The joint twisted a little bit, sent my entire back into spasm to protect that joint. And that's not as bad as a slipped or herniated disc. But 25 years later, I live with the legacy of that one simple moment in time when my back gave out and it did cause permanent damage. And so now I continue to have problems with that sacroiliac, with that SI joint. I continue to, every now and again, go into spasm, and it can be the dumbest thing. One time I happened to reach down to put something in the kitchen garbage can, and I felt the sizzle go through my lower back, and it's like, uh-oh. And I'm down. There have only been a few times when I've been down and can't get back up. Maybe 3 times in 25 years. That's horrendous. I mean, you can't get up. That's a really frightening thing, and you realize your vulnerability. You realize how vulnerable you are when you can't stand up. Now, I've had countless other experiences of the sizzle goes through my back like a bolt of lightning, and I know by now what that means. And I don't usually wind up that I can't get up anymore, but I'm in spasm. I can't move very well. I most certainly can't play pickleball or drive or any of those things. And one of my great fears, as I've said before, is being on the road, being on tour, and having that happen, and I'm on the ground, and I can't get up. And the tour goes on without me, and I'm stuck in a hotel in God knows where, trying to recover and letting the band down and maybe getting fired. And then how do I get home? Because sitting on an airplane with back spasms, not cool. And I've done some dicey stuff, man. Like, I've played gigs. I can remember distinctly one time playing a gig where my spouse or significant other had to put my shoes on me. It was a winter gig. I was having spasms, and I had to take my boots off to put on shoes to play the drums, and I couldn't do it. I had to have somebody put my shoes on for me, get me seated on the drum throne, and then we hope for the best. Usually when I'm sitting on the drums, it actually helps, like moving my legs, moving my feet, my hips tends to loosen things up a little bit. But I've had that happen. I can remember playing a gig in Toronto with the Lindsay Band where I was one false movement from being on the floor permanently, or at least for an extended period of time. And some had to carry my drums for me. Again, prop me up on the stool and hope for the best. It's a bad, bad thing. Now, I do a lot to try to mitigate that. I have a yoga routine that I do almost every day. I'm very mindful of my back. I protect it, but there's no guarantee. And so there are times when my back just goes. It happened recently, which necessitated my trip to the chiropractor, and it can be the mildest thing. And you just don't know. And so you kind of live with this dark shadow around you all the time. Is one false move going to send my back out? Well, in 2023, this happened in January, and I think it was actually psychosomatic. You may or may not believe in the kind of mind-body connection. I do. And in January of 23, I experienced kind of an aftershock of the anxiety of 2020. So for whatever reason, in 23, in January, I was having another anxiety feeling. I was having a depression that went with it. So I was in a very bad mental state. And then my back went. And I think the back going was a physical manifestation of the mental stuff that was going on with me. So mid-January, the spasms started, and they just didn't stop. They just didn't stop. I tried to play pickleball through that. I could hardly move. People were feasting on me by doing drop shots. And I'm like, look, a-hole, you know I can't move, and you're doing that to me. It's lame. And they're like, hey, you're an a-hole because you always get to these shots, and now we're taking the opportunity to make you suffer. All in good fun. But eventually I had to quit playing pickleball because I couldn't friggin' move. And it just would not get better. And then every time it started showing some improvement, something would happen that would knock it back out again. I would cough. That happened several times where I think I got a cold, right? So I'm coughing, and the back starts feeling a little bit better. And then I cough and bang, the spasms lock right back in again. And then the cat fight. That was in the title of that podcast episode. Fontaine's back pains and a cat fight. Again, the back is starting to get a little bit better. And at the time, we still had the 3 cats. We lost 2 of those cats last year. At the time, we still had the 3 cats. And 2 of them were looking out the window at the winter evening, as they were wont to do. And then from outside, a cat jumped up on the window ledge, and my 2 cats, being territorial, went nuts. And in lieu of being able to attack the cat on the other side of the window, they attacked each other. This happens once in a while. Cats just see red. They just got to attack. Even if the cat beside you is not the one that's causing the problem, they got to attack a cat. And so they went at each other, had a full-on fight in my living room. If you've ever heard cats fight outside, that's a harrowing sound. Put it in your living room, all right? Imagine how loud and chaotic that is. And I just reacted. I wasn't even thinking about my body. I just threw myself in between them. So I threw myself to the floor to separate these cats, dragged one of them away, locked it downstairs. It was mayhem. And when it was kind of done, I was like, oh no. I just threw myself to the floor to break up a cat fight. And then the spasms just locked right back in again. This went on for weeks. It was 6 weeks, 2 months, where the back spasms just would not let up. And I'm convinced it was the product, it was the physical manifestation of a mental thing, anxiety, depression, and it just expressed itself in that way. Locked onto my vulnerability, which is that left SI joint, sent my whole back into spasm, a physical manifestation. I really believe that. And the reason I believe that is it wouldn't let up. There was no physical reason for that to happen. And then it just wouldn't let go. And so came a point where I got to do something. I think I'd gone in like to the sports med clinic. I'd had some imaging done, and the imaging was more or less clear. Like there was nothing abnormal with the back, with the spine, nothing with the discs, nothing that was unusual or alarming for a person my age. There was some slight scoliosis. So, hey, I got that going for me, but nothing to cause what was going on, right? There was no spinal damage. It's just this wonky SI joint and the spasms. So the body, the muscles lock in around it to hold it in place when it's kind of out of place. And it's a pain, quite literally. And so it's like, well, dude, you should go to a chiropractor. I'd been resisting that because if you have back pain, you are leery of somebody jumping on your back, folding you up like a pretzel and then jumping on you. Makes you think they might hurt you, you know. But I had reached a point of desperation. It's like, this can't continue. Something's got to give here. And so I reached a level of recovery whereby I could get myself into the car. Again, just being able to get into your car and get back out. What a privilege. What a novelty. Happened last summer that I had to cancel a gig, I think for the first time in my life, where I was set to sub in with one of Ken the Zen's bands because their drummer was away and I was going to fill in for him. And came the day of the show and I'm packing up my gear and I'm on hands and knees and I reached for something and I just felt the sizzle. Bang. And that is the scariest feeling. If you have back spasms, you have back pain and you feel the sizzle, that little bolt of electricity go through you. And I just knew right away, oh, I'm in real trouble here. And I did all the things that I know to do, stretching, movement, whatever, joint manipulation, all the stuff that you can try. But it's like, I'm really in trouble here, big time. And it's not even like just, this is going to ruin my day. I'm going to let people down. They're expecting me on a friggin' gig here. And as a professional, you don't do that. You know, you make the gig. And so I managed to somehow drag my gear to the car. And like it's one of those one false movements and I'm down and I can't get back up. And then I got all my gear loaded, and then I tried to get into the car. I'm like, I can't get in. I can't bend. I can't get in. And I angled myself in such a way, kind of like when the initial injury happened. And I got in the car, and I'm like, I can't sit up. I'm draped across the passenger seat. Like, I can't get up. And then I had to message Ken, and I had warned him that this was happening. I'm like, dude, I can't physically do it. I can't sit up in the car. And so I had to bail on a gig, which is awful. Letting down my friends, letting down my professional reputation. Horrendous. And then I couldn't get back out of the car. Having bailed on the gig, I can't get back out. I couldn't get myself out of the gig. It took like 10 minutes for me to inch my way, to shrimp my way out of the car. And this is what I live with, you know. Back in 23, when I finally decided to go to the chiro, I managed to get myself into the car, managed to drive. I still have a lumbar support pillow that I use in the car. And I got down to the chiro and then dragged myself out of the car and then just limped into the building, had to get on the elevator, take it up top, and limp my way in. And the chiro treatment really helped, by the way. If you've been reluctant about chiro, if you have back issues, definitely worth a try. And my chiro is a lovely person called Heather, who's really terrific at what she does. She folded me up like a pretzel and popped a bunch of stuff. And it really helped. It genuinely helped. Like within a few weeks, I was kind of back on the pickleball court. It made a really big difference. And so I don't go regularly to chiro. I go when I'm having a flare up and I feel like I need an intervention, because what she does just releases those spasms. It puts things back in place. The muscles relax and things are much more limber, fluid, and it releases the spasms. And so I've been having them again. A couple weeks ago, again, I went and played pickleball. I came home. I kind of reached for something. I bent down to unscrew something from the bottom, and spasm just locked in. And it's just this constant legacy, this constant fear of a damn spasm happening. And so I was able to get up, but I was basically on my back, and then I pulled a couple of muscles, and then I'm developing this piriformis problem. That is a muscle in your butt. And that's pickleball, because I'm playing so much pickleball, and you spend a lot of time in pickleball kind of in a squatted, ready position. It's a wear and tear thing on the piriformis. So I'm having spasms, pulled muscles, piriformis. Better go see Heather. Better do something, because my chain is all wonky back there. And so I went in today, recording day, and I was okay, though. Right? It was not a crisis situation. I drove there fine, and I got out of the car and I walked up the stairs to the second floor, and it just brought back the memory of 3 years ago when I went in there for the first time and I could barely move. And I thought, how lovely is it? How lovely is it to simply be able to move like this? And I have pickleball later today, and I'll be fine, and I'll go and play. And what a privilege it is at 52 years old to still be able to do those things. Now, sometimes you have to distill life down to that simple pleasure, because there's a lot of stuff around you that you could get lost in that's negative and fearful and dangerous. I am, of course, thinking of global politics and some of the weird stuff that's happening with our neighbors to the south. I know you don't need me to go into that. You know, if you're paying attention at all, you understand some of the dangerous and mystifying stuff that's going on. And it's so easy to get lost in that. And I'm in this weird position right now where my contract has ended and I'm kind of between gigs, as it were. And you could very easily get lost in a kind of despondency about the state of the world, about the state of your personal life. I'm still going through a separation, even though that is, by this point, kind of old news. You know, my spouse or my former spouse or significant other and I have more or less worked it out. We're good as roommates, two ships passing, but it all is fine and amicable. It's okay. But again, it's a life change. There's a lot of life change happening right now. If you're prone to anxiety, if you are inclined to want to exert control over the world, going through a separation, ending a contract, looking for a new position, all of that is very unsettling, right? And then you add upon that the state of the world. You add upon that Arsenal seeming to be blowing the Premier League again. And, you want to drop into a funk, and the temptation is there, and I've been in one off and on, Sometimes the antidote to that is simply to appreciate the very simple, fundamental things of life. Like, A, I have a chiropractor. Wow. B, I can afford to pay the chiropractor and go visit. C, I could drive there under my own power and walk up the damn stairs. Like, things are not as bad as they could be. And I know, because I've had them far worse than they are now, at least physically, right? And so that got me thinking about, what are some of the good things, despite all of what would seem to be the darkness, despite all of the bad things. What are the good things? Well, last week, my pal Wolf and I trundled down to Niagara Falls, honeymoon capital of southwestern Ontario, to see Pussifer. I don't know if you're Pussifer fans or not. That is one of Maynard from Tool's side projects. I am not the biggest Pussifer fan, but my pal Wolf is. And when these tickets came up, because, there were tour dates in the States, and we're like, a little antsy about going to the States, frankly. At this moment in time, little antsy about going down there because Ice Ice Baby, etc. It's just like, not sure we want to do that. And then there's the sheer principle, not to get political here, but the current United States government has not been all that friendly to my country and its proposals for my country. And so I'm not super inclined to go say hello. In any case, hey, Pussifer's going to play Niagara Falls at the Falls View Casino. Terrific. Haven't been there before to that venue. Haven't been to Niagara Falls. I'm not a huge Pussifer fan. He is. Let's go check it out. And so we did. So we drove down to Niagara Falls. That's fun. And then I had some interesting memories. We parked down by the falls. We're walking along the river and then the Horseshoe Falls there. Great, Niagara Falls. Brought back some memories. I went there as a little kid. It's the ultimate, maybe not the ultimate, but it's one of the ultimate Canadian things to do. I mean, everybody's got to go to Niagara Falls, right? And back in the day, I've talked about this before, that sign-off that used to be on the TV, used to run maybe on the CBC, because channels used to sign off at like midnight, kids. I know some of you younger people may not realize this, but entertainment was not a 24-hour cycle back in the day. We end our broadcast day. It would be midnight, and then the colored bars would come up, and that'd be it until whenever they went back on air again. But they would sign off with the Canadian National Anthem, and they had a video that would run with it. There were a few different iterations of this, but you would watch the station go off air, and they would show this video. And, of course, one of the Canadiana things they would show is Niagara Falls. It would be like 1978 or 1983 or something. And they'd show people at Niagara Falls, and it's like it triggers that kind of very nostalgic memory from back in the 70s, 80s, back the way things used to be. And I went as a kid to Marineland, and then I went as an adult to Marineland, and Polka King Walter Ostenak was playing at some cabana at Marineland, and his bass player was giving my spouse or significant other the eye. So I almost had to rumble with Walter Ostenak's polka band at Marineland in Niagara Falls because he was giving the stink eye to my spouse. And I can remember going into the States for a festival when I was a kid, teenager, a bunch of friends of mine and I, and just stopping at Niagara Falls. And I have vague memories of us walking across the same ground that we walked on with that Wolf and I did this week. And it's just interesting. Just memories coming back of having been there. Niagara Falls is such a weird place because you drive down there and you look at the falls for 10 minutes and you go, that's pretty cool. And that's it. That's it. You can walk up Clifton Hill and you can go to all the weird attractions and wax museums and pay exorbitant amounts of money to do that if you choose to. Not cheap for a family with kids, I wouldn't think. But like you walk up Clifton Hill and you walk back down, that takes 20 minutes and you're like, that's it. Half an hour, we've seen the whole damn thing. And then Niagara Falls outside of that, not a whole hell of a lot to see and do. Lots of places where you can spend a lot of money. I did go there once in March, I don't know, 10 years ago, more than that. My spouse was there for a conference and I just tagged along. And we had a hotel room overlooking the frozen falls, which is a cool thing to see. And then she went off to her conference in the morning and I went off in search of breakfast. And I went to this buffet that was advertising like $7.99 breakfast buffet, something like that. Terrific, pretty good price. And I went and sat down and coffee was not included in the buffet, but I'm like, okay, well, I'll have the buffet and please a coffee. And the coffee wound up being like $5. And I'm like, you bastards, you rip off rats charging me. I mean, this is a while ago. Coffee, you're thinking maybe a couple of bucks, like $5, $6 for a damn cup of coffee and a lousy breakfast buffet, by the way. So Niagara Falls, they get you wherever they can. But we went down for the Pussifer gig. Again, I'm not a huge Pussifer fan. I haven't listened to them a whole lot, but it's not really reminiscent of Tool. Sonically, it's got more of an electronic vibe, maybe. But it's Maynard and whatever. And I found myself, Fallsview Casino, that stage, really nice. Like a nice 5,000 seat theater, good seats, wide seats, lots of leg room. We wound up standing anyways. But if you're there for something other than a rock show, very comfortable, nice room, big stage, great sound, really, really good room. And a 5,000 seater. And Pussifer more or less sold it out. Not completely sold out, but it was packed. And I'm like, wow, this band has a bigger following than I would have thought. A lot of Tool shirts, obviously, in the audience. Fine. I was wearing my Sky Wallace t-shirt. Past guest on this podcast. And this musical comedian Dave Hill was the opener. That was madcap and kind of fun. And then Pussifer came out and played, and I can't even really describe their music. It's like Tool, but without the really heavy guitars, maybe. And I want to give a shout out to the drummer, Gunnar Olsen, because this is not an easy set to play. It's still Maynard, man. So every song basically is in some weird, odd time signature. I was counting a lot of 7. I was counting a lot of 6, but with just snare drums placed on interesting beats. And even the bits that are played in 4, the snare drum is just almost never played on 2 and 4. It's dropped into weird places. It'll be dropped on the of 3. Everything always feels like it's odd time, and most of the time it is. And I found myself getting annoyed. Found myself getting annoyed at every song I'm trying to count. Like every song I'm trying to count the time signature. They were weird. Some of them I couldn't count. Some of them were very strange. And then I step back at a certain point and I'm like, wow, Gunnar Olsen is so comfortable in those odd time signatures. It's amazing. I don't like playing odd time signatures. All right. I will do it. Right. I will play in 7 if I have to. I will play in 6. I play a lot of 6, but it's like that snare drum on 4, you know what it's like in 6. That's fine. Not 6 with these really oddly placed snare drums. And then he's playing a bunch at 7, dropping fills in. He was just so fluid and so comfortable in those really odd, challenging time signatures. I'm like, this guy's amazing. I mean, everybody knows Danny Carey from Tool is an astonishing drummer because those parts are so intricate, often very fast fills, really interesting stickings, and so much in such odd time. Like Maynard as a writer is dizzying. It's just bewildering how he hears music, because it's almost never just a straight 4/4. One of the things I like about Tool is because their music is so intricate. Every now and again, though, they'll just drop into a heavy riff and ride it. And when you have that experience, after so much of it is so mind-bending and disjointed, for them to drop into a pocket that you can actually feel and dance to really amplifies that pocket, right? This band, Pussifer, doesn't really do that. The vocals are largely shared between Maynard and a woman called Karina Round, and really great voice she has, and they work really well together. The stage is dark. Maynard has this thing about not really being seen, right? When I saw Tool live, Maynard was behind a screen for most of the show. It's this weird affectation or idiosyncrasy that he has. And this band, he's got like this big mohawk going. And he's out front and you can see him, but the stage is dark. Like half his face is hidden a lot of the time. Very shadowy. It's a very theatrical performance. The stage looked really cool. And they played great. I mean, everything was note perfect. And this is the thing, man. Like, this music is so intricate, so odd, and yet it's note perfect. Like, nobody misses anything. And this is just bands at that level. Same as when I saw Ghost, they play their nearly 2-hour show. Note perfect. Nobody misses a damn thing. And it's really amazing. Because I've never played a perfect show in my life. And I'm watching people at this level playing music of that intricacy, not missing a damn thing. Very, very impressive. And it was a cool show. And watching Gunnar play and just realizing his level of comfort within those very difficult time signatures, within those very difficult frames, it's like, wow. I mean, this is a cat. I mean, I was talking about Danny Carey. Everybody acknowledges Danny Carey's genius and technical ability. He's always in the conversation for the best rock drummer on earth because he's amazing. What he plays, the way he plays it inside those very difficult, intricate time signatures. Fantastic. Well, add Gunnar to the list. Gunnar Olsen of Pussifer, because he's doing the same thing. The music is a different vibe. It's a different intensity, but he's fundamentally doing the same thing, operating within those very difficult time signatures. So comfortably, so fluidly, very, very impressive. Do I want to do it? No. Give me 2 and 4 in those Americana songs where I can bring foundation, heft, backup vocals, and emotion. That's my pocket, all right? And I will happily do that, and I will own that to the best of my ability. But my hat is doffed. My salute is given to Gunnar Olsen of Pussifer for the way he operates in those time signatures. Really, really fantastic. And hey, Wolf won $100 on the slots, and how are you going to beat that? So that was cool. And it's just like, how great to be able to go with my friend down to Niagara Falls, take a look around, see that stuff, feel a part of that Canadiana. I'm reminded of the Honeymoon Suite video for, I think it was Burning in Love, which is my favorite Honeymoon Suite song. Believe they shot the video, part of it there, right? And other things we've seen, Superman. It's iconic, right? And even though you can see the whole thing in 10 minutes, it's fine. It was just fun. Fun memories and fun to be there and fun to remember, in particular that Canadian sign-off, the national anthem. I miss that. It's a relic of a time long gone. But again, just the good things. A friend of mine, we went to see a really cool show, and we had a good time together. And I'm doing it again this week, kids. This is coming out Wednesday, Thursday night. I will be in T-Dot. I will be in Toronto with my pal Stace to see Burning Witches, kids. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Burning Witches, who had a top 10 song of the year on this podcast a couple years ago. I want to go see if Laura Goldemond can be as amazing live as she is in the studio. Got a hunch she is. So we're going to see Burning Witches in Toronto at the Garrison. Super stoked about that. And again, it's just the same situation. Being able to go with a pal to see a gig, to have that experience together. And sometimes amidst the darkness of the world, that's the antidote. I can walk up 2 flights of stairs with my back. Amazing, because a few years ago I couldn't. I can go play pickleball tonight with my friends, people who I really appreciate and enjoy. Fantastic. I can go see Burning Witches on tour. Amazing. Fantastic. And it's just such a great antidote to the stress. It's an antidote to the darkness of the world. And I was sitting here today, like, what am I going to talk about on this week's podcast? Do I have anything? And sometimes it's just the simplest thing. The people in your life, the simple pleasure of being able to move yourself around on foot, or to drive, or to eat something good for dinner tonight. Sometimes we lose sight of these simple pleasures, and it's like people don't recognize their health until they don't have it anymore, right? Sometimes you go through a thing where you're like, wow, I didn't so much appreciate feeling reasonably good or being able to walk or run or whatever. Sometimes in the midst of the darkness, it's just nice to be reminded that you can still walk around. Not everybody can, man. And what a gift that is. Or to be able to play pickleball, or to have friends, or to be able to go and hear a show. Your ears work. Your eyes work. Fantastic. And I know that should be a given, but it isn't really, is it? And so I guess the message this week is appreciate the very simplest things that bring joy and comfort into your life, because it's very easy to be lost in the darkness, all right? I need to keep this relatively short, but I do want to tip you to some new music. New music by an old friend. That old friend is Australia's Rowena Wise. You may recall that back in, I'm looking over my notes here, back in 2024, 2 years ago, Rowena Wise's song Indifferent made our top 10 of the year in 2024. Fantastic song. She's a great singer-songwriter. And she has a new song out. Came out just this week. In fact, yesterday, Monday, this came out. Song is called Blood Ties. And it kind of fits with the general theme of what we've been talking about recently, which is a lot of mental health stuff. And I know that's been heavy. Rowena Wise wrote this song. I will read from some of the press materials around it. Blood Ties by Rowena Wise, written in the wake of a close friend's mental health crisis. Blood Ties turns its gaze toward the private architecture of family and the costs of emotional restraint. Wise shares, I wrote Blood Ties after a close friend experienced a mental health crisis. In the aftermath, I watched his father struggle to respond. Not because he didn't love his son, but because he didn't know how to meet him emotionally. In Australia, especially, emotional restraint has long been normalized, but that silence creates space for shame to grow, particularly within families where unspoken pain lingers beneath the surface. Blood Ties confronts what is often left unsaid, giving voice to pain and making a case for speaking, for naming what hurts and rejecting inherited beliefs that cast vulnerability as weakness. Yeah, we do that, don't we? Guys, keep that stiff upper lip. I talked about it a couple episodes ago. We need to talk about men's mental health because, as you will know, a friend of mine took his own life recently. A 50-something man who seemed to have everything going for him. And he was the third such story I've heard recently from 3 different groups of friends about middle-aged men in their lives who took their own lives. And for the most part, nobody saw it coming. And we have this tradition of observing a silence around our emotions. And then, in this case, this song Blood Ties by Rowena Wise talks about people not being able to handle other people's mental health problems. I know it's a difficult thing to do. None of us, for the most part, most of us, are not trained to be counselor and don't know how to handle other people's emotional states. And a lot of times we choose to ignore them out of discomfort, kind of look the other way and let them sort it out on their own, you know, but they don't always. And what can happen is people take their own lives. And then in a lot of cases, people don't express that they are struggling themselves. And people are taken by surprise when some crisis happens. So this song is about people need to learn how to handle other people's mental health problems. That's not easy to do, especially if you're having mental health issues of your own. So it's a heavy song, and maybe it doesn't fit all that much. Maybe it does with the content of this episode. We were talking about antidotes to the darkness. We're talking about how to feel just a little bit better in a world where you can feel bad. I'll read you some of the lyrics to this Rowena Wise song. He walked along the driveway you played upon the porch, running along the gravel as his car was taking off. A father that didn't hold you when leaving or coming home. And so you were raised believing you should dry your eyes alone. When your own son was broken, when his life was down the drain, your only advice was that one has got to suffer to gain. Stiff upper lip, kids, no pain, no gain. Chorus, you've got blood ties stuffed in your mouth. That's a heavy one. Verse 2, it's cold in the cafeteria, the sky faded blue to black. Here comes the nurse relaying that you're going to use, quote, the act. He shrouded his pain in silence. Now he's babbling monotone because he was raised believing that he should dry his eyes alone. I call you and you're shaken. It's not how it's supposed to be. You don't want to see your son swinging from his family tree. Ho ho! How's that for a lyric? You don't want to see your son swinging from his family tree. Chorus, you've got blood ties stuffed in your mouth. Won't let the truth come tumbling out. About the black sheep running around. It was always you. Bridge, is this the way to love? To shrug it off, don't make a fuss. I don't know what it takes to slowly break you open to us. You don't want to break my heart, so it's time to talk. It's time to talk. I tried to do that a couple episodes ago. I've tried to do it on this show. Talk about my own experience of anxiety, my own experience of depression, my own low moods, my own getting captured by the darkness and living there. I don't need to go over all that again, but I will point you to this song by Rowena Wise, because it's a good damn song. Whether the lyrics are heavy or not, it's just a really good song. She's a really good writer. This is Americana stuff. This is singer-songwriter stuff. Makes me think a little bit of Kathleen Edwards. She has a really neat voice. She's a really good songwriter. Really loved her song Indifferent. Really liked this song Blood Ties. So, if you're looking for something new this week, go check out that new song, Blood Ties, by Rowena Wise of Australia. Good writer, great singer, and I really like her stuff. So if you're into that kind of Americana vibe, that country folk rock vibe, Kathleen Edwards, that sort of thing, go check out Rowena Wise. I'm going to cut this episode off now because I got to stop doing this record and edit and upload on Tuesdays. It's taking a lot out of me. But again, I struggle for content a lot of the time, and so it usually becomes this back to the wall situation. In this case, I'm lucky to report that my back to the wall is not in spasm at the moment, and I was able to go see my chiro, and that just makes me think about the good things. If you're struggling with the darkness, pull all the way back to the very basic good things. You can walk upright. Chances are good you've got food on your table today and a roof over your head. Not everybody does, by the way. Sometimes you have to strip it back down to the very fundamentals, which is I'm breathing, I'm seeing, I'm hearing, I'm standing, I'm eating. I'm going to see a gig tomorrow night. You know what I mean? Sometimes, honestly, you have to pull it back that far. And if you've got some of those things in your life, then maybe you're doing okay. That's a platform upon which you can build. Because I have limped into that chiropractor and not been able to climb the stairs before. Being able to climb the stairs today was a reminder that things could be a lot worse than they are. I hope you're well. Please, ratings and reviews on Apple, on Spotify. Throw me a friggin' bone, please. If you've not done that, warms my cockles, helps with the algorithm. Please share these episodes. Please tell your friends if you're getting something from what I'm doing here. It is an almighty struggle a lot of the time to keep going. I'll be honest with you about that because it feels so often like it's just tumbleweeds out there. You release these episodes to a kind of silence a lot of the time, and you're like, is it worth it? I'd like to know it is, and you could help me know that by letting me know that. Commenting on the social media posts, ratings, reviews, sharing. I appreciate all the support. That is not to indicate that I do not get support. I really, really do. Speaking of good things, rehearsals have begun with fresh breath for our upcoming shows. Saturday, May 2nd, Forked River in London. Barn on the Farm in June. Sweden, at the festival in Sweden, forthcoming. We've begun rehearsals. Wonderful to see those people and play with them again. The Lindsay Band is sparking back to life because we have a brand new record, Neon Moon, which is ready to come out this year. We're beginning to rehearse again. The Carly Band is about to begin rehearsing again. So after the long, cold winter, the winter of silence, music is starting to roll back to life, and I do not take that for granted. I hope you're well. I'm going to shutting up, except to say good things really do happen when you put yourself out there, kids, so do it. The world needs you right now. We all need you being your best you. So whatever it is you bring it hard, bring it hot, okay? Thank you for listening this far. I do appreciate it. And in a perfect world, I'll be back next week with something. Cheers.